Welcome back to another video here on my channel. In today's video, I am doing Princess Tiana nails, and I'm also going to give you guys the original Princess in the Frog story. So Tiana is based off of two different princesses, Princess Emma from The Frog Prince and the princess from the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, The Frog Prince. And The Frog Prince, the original Brothers Grimm story, actually inspired The Frog Princess by E.D. Baker. And that is what the Princess and the Frog from Disney is based on. But we'll get into that. Tiana is also inspired by a famous chef in New Orleans named Leah Chase. But this video is not about Princess Tiana. But I did want to get that off in the beginning of the video. This video is not about Princess Tiana. It is about just the story of the Princess and the Frog. It's not based, I'm not talking about any one character, really, not going into a deep dive of any one character, just giving you the story, and that's it. Unlike many of the original tellings of a lot of these Disney movies, The Frog Prince is actually not a gruesome story. It doesn't have a gruesome ending or anything like that. So the original story could still be considered a child story. I think even the gruesome ones were still considered children's stories, but this one is not violent or anything like that. So the original story, The Frog Prince, is a German fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm, and it was published in 1812. And in this story, a young princess, she goes to take a walk by herself in the woods, and she comes across a pool of water or a spring of water that had a rose in the middle of it. So she sat down to take a little break and play with her golden ball. She had a little golden ball, and it was her favorite toy, and she would just toss it up in the air and catch it, toss it up and catch it. But one time she tossed it up and she threw it up so high that she was unable to catch it, and it fell into the water. So she looked in the water, but of course it was so deep that she could not see the bottom of it. So she began to cry loudly. And she yelled out if she could only get her ball again, she would give away all of her clothes, her jewelry, and everything that she had in the world just to get this ball back. So while she was crying, a frog came out of the water and asked her, like, why are you crying? What's wrong? And she immediately said, what can you do for me, you nasty frog? Her ball had fallen into the spring. So the frog said, I don't want your pearls, I don't want your jewelry, I don't want your clothes, but if you will love me and let me live with you and eat from your golden plate and sleep in your bed, I will bring you your ball again. The princess thought this was nonsense and it was silly, whatever the frog was talking about. She believed that he could never even get out of the spring to come visit her, but he could get her ball for her, so she will tell him that, yes, if you get my ball, then I will love you, you can come to my house, you can eat from my plate, you can sleep in my bed if you get my ball. And this was all her thinking in her head. He can't get out the spring, so she was fully planning on reneging on what she told him. So the frog said, okay, and he hopped into the water, he dove in, and he got her ball. He got her ball back and tossed it on the ground, and she was so happy to get her ball back that she didn't even think about the frog. She ran home so fast. The frog was calling after her saying, hey, can you pick me up to carry me with you while you're running, because I can't move as fast as you? But she didn't hear the frog, or she didn't want to hear the frog, and she continued to run home, leaving the frog there at the spring. So the next night, the princess is having dinner with her family, and there is a knock at the door. The princess goes to open the door, and there she sees the frog. She completely forgot about this frog. She was frightened, and she slammed the door as fast as she could and ran back to the dinner table. The king, who was her father, he saw that there was an issue and something was wrong. Something scared his daughter, so he asked her what's wrong. And she said that there is a nasty frog at the door. He lifted my ball from me out the spring this morning, and I told him that he should live with me here, thinking he could never get out the spring, but there he is at the door and he wants to come in. While she was speaking, the frog knocked at the door again, and he said, open the door, my princess dear, open the door to thy true love here, and mind the words and that thou I said by the fountain cool in the greenwood shade. So he was like, hey, girl, I'm here. You made a promise to me. Go ahead, open this door, and I'm going to live with you. You're going to love me forever. I'm going to eat off your plate, and I'm going to sleep in your bed. Once the king heard what the princess said, he said, well, you gave your word, so you must keep it. So go back to the door and let him in. And that's what she did. She went back to the door. She opened the door. She let the frog in. He hopped into the room, and then he went straight onto her lap, and he got up close to the table. He got lifted onto the chair, and he said, let me sit next to you, princess. So he asked her to move the plate near him because remember, he said, let me eat off your golden plate. She didn't want to. But her father was like, excuse me, you made a promise, so you need to do it. So she did. She pushed the plate near him. She was disgusted by it, a frog eating off her plate. After the frog ate, he said, I'm tired, so take me upstairs and put me in your bed. She did not want to do it again, but her father was like, hey, you made a promise, so you need to do it. So she did it. So she started to cry because she did not want to touch a frog. So the king grew angry with her, saying, you must perform this promise that you made. So she picked up the frog with her finger and her thumb. She carried him upstairs, and she put the frog in a corner and said, hey, you sleep here in this corner. But the frog said, I'm tired and I want to sleep as much as you. You need to put me in the bed or I'm going to tell your father. The princess was extremely upset. She was crying. She did not want this frog to be in her bed. And the frog is like, I'm not sleeping in the corner. You made a promise to me, so put me in the bed with you. Out of anger, she picked the frog up and she threw the frog against the wall with all her strength. And she yelled out, now you will be quiet, you horrid frog. Because she thought her throwing it against the wall with all her strength maybe killed the frog. But once she tossed the frog at the wall and the frog started to fall to the ground, it transformed into a prince with beautiful eyes. And the prince told her that with your father's consent, we can become bride and bridegroom. The prince told her how a wicked witch had bound him by her spells and how no one but she alone could have released him, and that they could go together to his father's kingdom and get married. So a carriage came the next morning to pick them up, and it was drawn by 8 white horses with 8 white plumes on their head and with golden harnesses. And with the carriages was the prince faithful Henry. So it was like his right hand man that would watch after him, and his name was Henry, and he was a servant for the prince. So Henry had suffered such pain when his master, the prince, turned into a frog that he had been obliged to wear 3 iron bands over his heart to keep it from breaking with trouble and anxiety. So he was so upset and in so much pain of what happened to the prince, he had to have iron rings put on his heart, because if it wasn't, his heart would have been broken out of pain. So Henry helped the prince and the princess into the carriage, and they're on their way to the prince's father's castle to get married. And while they're on their way there, they heard like a snapping sound, and the prince got worried. He thought something had broken, a wheel broken or something like that. But no, it was one of the iron rings that was on Henry's heart that had broke. And again, he heard the sound another time and a third time, and it was all of the rings breaking on Henry's heart because he was so overjoyed at his master's deliverance. And he was extremely happy. He was relieved, and they went and they got married. And that is the end of the original Brothers Grimm, The Frog Prince story. Now that story was published in 1812. Now we're going to jump all the way up to 2002 when another story was published called The Frog Princess, written by E.D. Baker. And this is what The Princess and the Frog is loosely based on. It's a parody of the German novel, The Frog Prince, that I just told y'all. So it's a parody of that story. And I'm going to let you know what happened in that story. In this story, we have Princess Esmeralda. She is extremely unhappy with her life. She doesn't like the way her laugh sounds. She's clumsy. She can't perform magic as well as her aunt. And so she sneaks away to a swamp. and she meets a talking frog who claims to be a prince. He said he was cursed by a wicked witch for criticizing her fashion sense, and only a kiss from a princess can break the spell. Princess Esmeralda wasn't interested in kissing the frog she just met, and she did not like his attitude, so she went home and she spoke to her aunt about what happened. The next day, the queen, her mom, reveals that she has arranged Esmeralda, or Emma, to marry Prince George, who is extremely stuck up and she don't like him. She is desperate, so she goes back to the swamp and agrees to give the frog a kiss. But instead of the frog turning into a prince, she turns into a frog. So she takes some time to get used to this new form. Of course she's upset about it and everything like that, but she takes some time to get used to the form and to get used to the frog form. And then her and the prince, the other frog, they decide to go and find the witch to ask her to change them back. So when they reach where the prince was first cursed, they tried searching for the witch there, but they realized it was too late and she was not the one who turned him into a frog. So they are captured and taken to the witch's cottage, where there are a lot of different animals being kept prisoner. So the cottage that they are taken to is actually not the cottage of the witch that turned him into a frog. It used to be her cottage, but not anymore. They speak to a bat named Lil Stinker, and the bat says that the original witch disappeared into a puff of smoke 1 year ago, and that the new witch who took over the cottage plans to use the frog's tongues and toes for spells to make herself eternally youthful and beautiful. So Princess Emma, she's able to use one of the witch's spell books and she frees all the animals. So she didn't turn them into humans, she just freed them all. So she decided, I'm going to return home and I'm going to ask my aunt how to change us back into humans, because she's a pretty good witch. She's pretty good with her magic and her spells. So Lil Stinker and a snake named Fang accompany them as protection while they go through the forest. When they get back to the castle, her aunt reveals that when Emma kissed the prince, she had been wearing a charm reversing bracelet that her aunt had given to her, which prevents witches from casting spells on her. To transform back, Emma and the prince will have to kiss again while wearing the bracelet. Emma then remembers that an otter stole the bracelet from her when she turned into a frog. So now they all have to go back into the swamp and retrieve the bracelet. So once they get back to the swamp, Emma, she disguises herself as a swamp fairy and she convinces the other animals, or the otter, to turn over the bracelet to her. She put it on and she kisses the prince. And there's this dog that has been following them throughout the whole story. And they don't know, they think that the dog is there to attack them. They don't know what's going on. It's been following them the whole time that they've been going through the forest. But once she puts the bracelet on and she kisses the prince, they turn into human, and also the dog transforms. It is revealed that that dog is actually the prince's horse, who was also cursed by the witch. So they go and they find the princess's aunt and they see her with the otter. She recognizes the otter as her old boyfriend, her old beau named Haywood, who had been cursed by Emma's disapproving grandmother many years ago. So the two couples make plans to convince their parents that they have found their true love. And that's the end of the story, or at least what I can find without having to, buy the whole entire book. But this is it's a series. So if you want, there's a whole entire series of this. If you want, I think it's like 8 books. I think that's what I found. So each book, it looks like, from what I found, that each book has a different animal on the front. So I don't know if it's following the story of a different animal or anything like that. But the last book is The Frog Princess Returns. That's the title of the last book of the series. So I don't know if the Frog Princess Emma, if she's a recurring theme or a recurring character throughout the whole series of the books. But I don't know. I might be interested to read them. I don't know. So I'm not going to recap Disney's The Princess and the Frog, because it is very similar to the story that I just told you. The only thing different is that Tiana, the princess in the Disney book, she is not this person who is not confident and things like that, like Emma. She's a chef. She has dreams to open a restaurant and everything like that. If you've seen the Disney movie, then you know the story. But the whole kissing a frog because they said that they were a prince and you're trying to help them out to turn them back into a human, and then you turn into a frog too. That whole part of the story is very similar in how you have to go and try to find the witch and get yourself turned back into a human, and you discover the meaning of true love while you're running around the forest with this frog. So here is the final design. I used the colors to mimic Princess Tiana's dress, and I changed a little gem over here on the cat eye gel because I thought that it could match Evangeline from the Disney version of Princess and the Frog, if you know who Evangeline is. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope you enjoyed the 2 stories that I told you today. Let me know if you've ever heard of these stories before, if you ever read them, or if you're familiar with them. I'd be interested to know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Again, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the post notification bell to be notified whenever I upload another video. And also, let me know, what princess do you think I should do next? Let me know. I need some suggestions. I have an idea of kind of the ones that I want to do early on in this series, but you guys can let me know. And I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.